In the studio today, we have a lot of books, and among the books, one that might look familiar to you, this is the book Satiristas. It's I guess written by Paul. He did the interviews with lots of great comics with photos.
Also, I want to give credit to Dan Dion, co-authored actually with Dan Dion, whose art portraits of all the subjects in the book are really really powerful, and they work hand in hand with the text, I feel.
Yeah, I'm going to actually steal this from the office and read it as soon as I can.
Read it in sequence. Don't just jump around to people you like, because the sequence actually is a big part of what I think is compelling about these conversations.
From the little bit of the book that I've read, it seems that you address this sort of, and it's mentioned in American, sort of the role of funny people in society, and you know, I think a lot of people think of comedy as clowns and hijinks and slapstick and stuff. But I mean, what do you think is the role of funny people in the world?
Hard to articulate, but I think that the world needs people who are going to challenge conventional assumptions, who are going to go to head with the things that are taken for granted, whether they be institutions or they be individual perspectives. I think that's really important. And in history, throughout history, comedy has had a very different place than it has now in Western culture. The Hopi Indians had a group of Hopi clowns, actually. I believe they were called the Hayoke, who were really kind of revered. In fact, they were charged with, over the course of a year, examining the dynamics of the tribe and the issues and the personalities and things like that. And then every year in a ritualistic ceremony on a given date, they would take over the town, and they would do all sorts of, they would behave backwards, they would challenge people that were normally unchallengeable, all these sorts of things. And it was basically a comedy festival of crazy interactions with these Hayoke. And then afterwards, the next day, the tribe would get together and actually discuss what they learned from all of this. And it would actually inform and affect the dynamic of the tribe, And it goes through history. In ancient Greece, there was the Gang of 60, which used to meet at the temple, I believe, of Heracles. And they were a quasi-governmental agency. They were sort of in conjunction with the government. Their charge was mock and satirize everything that was going on, and it would be factored into the democratic process. I mean, this goes on all the way through. Of course, the famous example is the court jester, who was the person who could say to the king what nobody else could say because he made it funny and entertaining. He took the sting out of it, if you will. So, I mean, there's always been a really important place historically in culture for the kind of thing that comedians do. It's only recently, or certainly in the West, where it just has become sort of pop culture fodder. But it still goes on, and it always has gone on. And to point to a relatively recent example of how important it is the civil rights movement. I mean, the truth is that black comedians during the civil rights movement had a profound effect. When Bill Cosby got up there and got all of America, which was predominantly racist, and the institutions of America were still racist, and he got up there and he talked about his childhood, and everybody was laughing, not at the differences between us, but at the similarities between us. He did a lot in terms of moving the line where blacks were no longer considered other. To be able to sit there and laugh with childhood recollections of a black man in 1960 in America was a profound paradigm shift. So he, in many ways, was even more powerful than somebody like Dick Gregory, who went head-to-head brilliantly with the issues and was constantly talking about the differences between blacks and whites. But together, they created a dialogue that America was really afraid to have. So that's a very recent example of how comedy really did have a profound impact. I mean, if you really think about who became spokesmen, it was, in terms of entertainment, it was almost predominantly a handful of black stand-up comics. There definitely is a place for it. What everybody in Satiristas talks about is how, as comedians, as artists, as people who are trying to make people laugh and entertain them, we can't have as our mission trying to change the world. That's got to come after the fact. And a lot of that boils down to the integrity of what you choose to speak about, what you consider important, how you choose to approach all of those things. But the key is to not have it be your raison d'etre. Your raison d'etre has to be funny and entertaining. The side effect of the kind of force you have on people's minds and culture, it has to be a secondary aspect of it. Otherwise, you defeat your own purpose. Bill Maher puts it very well in Satirizing. He goes, if I'm not concerned with the laughs, then I'm just talking, and people can hear talking anywhere and still not hear it. It's when it's funny and it's engaging and it seduces people into having a great time with these ideas that may be challenging for them that you really get things accomplished. Roseanne actually has a very, very interesting perspective on this. She says that what she did with her sitcom, Roseanne, was take a radical idea and make it mainstream, move it to the middle. And she said that's the most important thing. If you have radical ideas and you only communicate them onto the radical fringes, you can't really get anything done. But if you can communicate it to the masses, to the middle of that bell curve, if they can understand and see what you're talking about, then you actually can accomplish things.